Welcome back to Homeschooling Mama. How are you all doing out there in the homeschooling world? I hope everything's going well for you. Today, I want to talk to you about critical thinking and analytical skills. It is so important that we teach our children critical thinking and analyzation skills. A lot of those skills are being missed in the schools nowadays. There's a lot of things being cut out. They're not teaching cursive writing anymore. There's a lot of things that's not being taught in the schools anymore that we perhaps might have grown up with, as this is the 3 R's of school. It's not being taught that way anymore. So as homeschooling parents, where we have control over what our children learn, it is so important that we teach critical thinking. I know a lot of the homeschool curriculums out there, especially ones that are Christian based, I don't know about a lot of the other stuff out there, but they do have a lot of critical thinking inside of their curriculum. However, if you're making up your own curriculum, if you're using a curriculum that is not heavy on critical thinking and analyzation skills, that's okay. Augment the curriculum. We augment stuff all the time anyway in my house. I don't know if you do in your house. But in our school, we'll augment and supplement things all the time. So introduce that to your children. And the great part about it is you don't have to add an extra class to your school for critical thinking. It is a part of the subjects that you are already doing. History, grammar, language, English. It's all there already. Science, math, it's there already. It's just a little bit more expounding that you can do on it. And it won't add more time to your day or to your program at all. It is so important that we teach our children how to critically think, because you guys, if you look around, people aren't thinking for themselves anymore in society. And when you do not think for yourself, you have the ability to be enslaved, to be treated wrongly, to be sent on a cycle, right? Just spinning around because you're not thinking for yourself, and it can get you into a lot of trouble. You can lose or give up your rights, and you can actually be going for things that you're actually not really for because of that. We all need to be able to think for ourselves, and in our society, everything is being dumbed down. There was a time when people actually had to go to school to learn how to use a cash register. Can you believe that? You would have to go to school to get a certificate and learn how to use a cash register, to be a cashier. But today's time, you really don't have to. Well, they're trying to get rid of all the cashiers and have self-service, right? But you really don't have to do that. Even if you go to McDonald's, it's just, Big Mac, and you press the button. If you go to the stores, they're just beeping everything. And something that doesn't have a beep, like in your produce, they got to look it up, memorize the number, and put it in there. And what happens is when people are dumbed down and they don't have the ability to think for themselves, you've experienced this where you've had to go somewhere, deal with someone, whether it's at your bank or some type of business, some type of service, and if it's not ABC in line what's on the paper, they're confused, they don't know how to service you, and they don't know how to help you because it's something simple that can be solved. But because they don't know how to think for themselves, right? They don't know how to answer. Well, it says here on the paper I got to do step 1 and step 2. Well, yeah, I understand step 1 and step 2, right? But here's another little variable, and that little variable will throw them off, and then you're sent round and round frustrated because you're dealing with some people who have lacked the ability to be able to think. And what's really sad is you can ask for a supervisor, you can ask for a manager, but a lot of these managers don't know how to think either or solve problems either. And we are lacking problem solvers in this world. Problem solvers are people who know how to think and who know how to analyze. So that is so important that you teach that to your children, because if we don't teach this to our children, you guys, the rights and the freedoms that we have today, our children are not going to be able to have it, and our grandchildren are going to grow up in a world that is probably not favorable for them, right? So it's really important that we teach it. Now, how do you teach it? Well, teaching critical thinking skills and analyzation in the classroom and outside of the classroom is really simple and really easy. And I say in the classroom and outside of the classroom because you can teach it with your schoolwork, but as parents, it is our responsibility, not teachers' responsibility to educate our children. And so if somebody is not homeschooling watching this, it is your responsibility when you have a child to teach that child their ethics, their morals, even their political views. They're being taught a lot by you, and it's not the responsibility of the school systems, of daycares, of babysitters, of other people to raise our kids. It's actually our job to raise them, and raising them takes more than just feeding them and housing them, right? It's teaching them and it's molding them. And so when we teach our children critical and analyzation skills, it doesn't just take place in classroom, it takes place outside of classroom. I'm going to talk real quick about outside, and then we'll get back into the classroom. When you're outside of the classroom, a lot of things I know that I work with my kids on a lot at different ages, different stages. It looks a little bit different. But basically, a lot of times if something happened and kids go, uh-oh, a glass broke. Mama, the glass broke. And I say, okay, so what do you think we should do about that? Well, I guess we need to get it up so nobody should get hurt. Okay, so what do you think the first thing that we should do? I'm making them use their brain, right? Look, see, there's a problem. How do we fix it? Think about this thing. I'm not going to go tell you to put your shoes on first. I want you to realize you need to put your shoes on first. So as they're telling me the things that they think they should do, if they forgot the step to put on some shoes, I'll say, okay, well, what about your feet? What do you think will happen if you step on that glass, right? Oh, it's going to hurt. So what can we do to protect your feet? I'm walking them through things, allowing them to think for themselves. If I tell them to go into the pantry and I say, get the olive oil, right? It's going to be to your left behind, I don't know, the white wine vinegar, right? And they go in there and they look, because that's what kids do a lot, right? They look and they say, I don't see it, right? And I said, no, it's in there. I know for a fact where it's at, because I know how I put my stuff in there. I know where it's at. No, you need to move some things around and you need to look. I told you exactly where it was, but they just open the door. I don't see it, close it. So I'll sit there and I'll watch them. Go stand in there, look in the pantry. What do you see? Okay. So if you don't see it in front of you, what do you think you need to do next? What were my instructions? Okay. So let's follow that, right? If you can't follow that, now use your brain. If you don't see it at a glance, don't that mean you need to do something? What do you think that means? Well, where we normally put it? Did you look over there? Did you move anything? Could it be possible that there's something in front of it? So I'm trying to get them to use their brain. I'm not going to solve every problem for you. You've got to learn how to think for yourself. So whenever there's something that comes up, I let them have a chance to figure some things out, but I'm with them in the process, walking them through, because I want them to come to my conclusion, not some crazy wrong conclusion, because kids gonna come up with some crazy stuff sometime to solve some answers, right? So I do that with them all the time. Okay, Mama, can we bake this? Great. How do you suppose we need to do this? Well, let's get a recipe. What book do you think is the best recipe book that we should go ahead and get that? Go ahead and get it and find what you need. If we're cooking and then say like one of the measuring cups broke, right? Okay, so the 1/4 cup broke. How do you suppose we can come up with 1/4 of a cup if we don't have a 1/4 of a cup measuring cup? Use your brain and think. What makes up 1/4 of a cup? How many tablespoons can we use to get 1/4 of a cup, right? So I'm allowing them to use their brain, think through stuff, analyze the situation, and come up with a conclusion. So that's things that I do outside of the house, and those are things that we need to do as well, even when you're grocery shopping, right? Okay, so we're going to make this, right? We're going to make cookies. What do you suppose we need, right? Go in the kitchen before you leave, see what we have, see what else we need. Get in the store, do we need anything else? What do you think we need? It's just things like that, making them think, use their brain instead of you solving all their problems and answering all their questions. That's teaching them to think for themselves and to analyze situations and come up with conclusions. Now, when you're in a school setting, some of the stuff is already out there, and it changes with each grade, each stage, and each age, right? So your reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is basically teaching a child how to think and to analyze, but it has different stages to it. So in the beginning, the books are going to be like, see, spot, run, right? And then at the end of the some of the books, I know Becca have a lot of readers. At the end of the readers, it'll ask some questions to the kids. It'll be like, who was running? It was Spot. Or what did Spot do? Spot ran. It's real simple, just to make sure that you understood the sentence that was said, right? But as they keep going, eventually the answers are going to be written out plain in the text that they have to read, and the questions will come with the director answer from there. But eventually it'll end up being where in the story the answer is implied, but you have to be able to think and to analyze to come up with the answer. I know one of my daughters was doing a book the other day, and a reading comprehension book, and they were talking about a certain person who was born, the first year, the first month of the 1900s, right? But then in 1940, when he was 40 years old, he won his first such and such and such and such, right? So you have to be able to know. They wanted to ask a question, but they had to do the math in those years. I think I messed the problem up, but I hope you got the basic thing of it. It's where they give you information, but they're not telling you the exact. They're giving you facts, but they're not telling you the exact some things in the middle of there, and you have to figure it out based upon the information that's given there. That's teaching analytical skills, how to be able to analyze what a person has read. So your reading comprehension books are really good with that. Even being able to find the plot. What did they mean when they said this? What was implied? What was blatantly stated? How do you know that the author felt this way? What gave you that indication? That's helping the children to use their brain, use their mind, and be able to analyze. Math is very analytical. You'll find that people who like to analyze stuff, analyze data, my husband is like that, they love math, they love numbers, they love facts, and they love information. I like to look at stars, right? My husband will sit out and lay out with me. Haven't did it in a long time with all the babies, but we sit up and look at the stars. I look up at the stars and say, ooh, pretty stars, right? My husband looks up and he's seeing angles. He's seeing math equations. We both play sports, right? My husband's very athletic, very good. He can play pool, he can play basketball. He's just good at everything that he does. But when he's shooting a shot, he's seeing angles. I play basketball. When I shoot a shot, I just know if I hit it in that spot and finesse it like this, it's going to go in. But my husband, he hardly ever misses. He has a high percentage as a shooter because he sees angles. When we play pool, right, I'm just going for it. But my husband is seeing angles, so he very rarely misses the shot in pool. So when you find people who are good in math, because math is very analytical, it helps you to have an analytical mindset. And as you get older and start dealing with statistics, that help you have a very analytical mindset. You see, when people want to go to law school, most people don't do good on the LSAT if they major in like political science, psychology, history, something like that, because it doesn't teach you to be analytical. When people are dealing with getting a degree in science or in math, something like that, they end up economics because they have to analyze, and they're taught to really think things through, to be very analytical. Those are the people who do the best on the LSAT and make the best lawyers and do the best in law school. So when you're dealing with sciences, science is another degree that you can get that'll help you do good as a law student. But if you deal with the sciences, science is teaching you to be critical. It's innate in learning about science, because you're learning about, you're coming up with your hypothesis, you're doing your projects, you developing your theories, things like that. And it helps you to analyze data, helps you to learn to be analytical and think through processes as you start dealing with your different sciences and your chemistries, things like that. When you're dealing with history, right, it's the same thing though. We can teach our children to think critically when they're dealing with history and other subjects like that, because as they're reading things, you can be asking questions to make them have to analyze situations in history, analyze the things that took place and deal with the information of that, or even ask them, how could we have dealt with that differently? Make them learn to use their brain to think through things and to be able to analyze the data that is in front of them. When you're dealing with writing, right, I like to have my kids help each other with writing, and sometimes I'll have one read the other ones and give suggestions for their writing on it. But my kids love to, I have two in particular that really like to edit papers. But it's really helpful because as they're going through, right, and they're looking through all the stuff that they're doing, they're learning to use their brain to say, you know what, this sentence could be structured a little bit better, things like that. But you really want to teach critical thinking. It's so important that you guys teach your children to think critically and to be able to analyze, because you know what, if you look around in the world today, we got a lot of crazy stuff going on out here. We have people, over the years, I've lived through a few presidents, and some of them, I was little and didn't really pay attention to, and there were some that, I was a little bit more aware and I was paying attention to. And one thing that I found out as an adult is that a lot of things that have been said about multiple presidents, right? I've seen it where it was everybody cheered. The news said everything was great when a president had said something, and I'm going, but that's not what he said. Did you actually hear what he actually said? But it's been as if he said something positive and everybody's excited about it, and then they get their feelings hurt when the president does something different, which he said he was going to do all along. But because people didn't listen, analyze what they heard, and went to the source for themselves, they were upset about something else. But I've also seen it where presidents said, blah, 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 and then it gets spin as they said something that they didn't say or taken out of context, and then people get upset. That doesn't just happen in the political world, you guys. That happens in churches. That happens all over the place. And a lot of that is happening right now, where people are not thinking for themselves, getting information and facts straight from the mouth of the person who said it, and thinking for themselves and making stances based upon what they believe. There's a lot of people out there making stances, and it's not really what they believe, but they're going with the flow. A lot of people are getting in a lot of financial problems, having a lot of divorces, having a lot of issues in life, health problems, and a lot of different things because they're not thinking for themselves. I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to go ahead and end this. I took my kids to Sonic's, and they ordered them some slushies. And my daughter went to pay, and she was paying and gave the lady the money, and she set some quarters on the table, or she set a stack of 4 quarters up there as well. And the young lady says, can you spread the quarters out, because I can't count them. And my daughter said, well, there's 4. I said, go ahead and spread them out for her, baby. So she spread them out, and it was 4. And it took her a while to realize that those 4 quarters equaled $1. Now, we gave her the amount that, say it was $6.98, right? So we gave her $7. The change is $2. I think, or 2 cents, not $2, I'm sorry. You think, I think, 2 cents. Easy math, no big deal, right? But the young lady had to pull out a calculator. She was sitting there trying to do the math in her head. She couldn't do the math in her head. She had to pull out a calculator, do the math on the calculator to come up with the 2 cents. Now, you might laugh at that and you might think it's funny. However, it is not funny. It is really sad, because that's what we have been producing. You find that everywhere you go. I can give you story after story after story, and I'm sure you can give me some too, where people are not taught to think. They're not taught to do math. They're not taught to analyze. You have a person, you have a kid, you have somebody who's making $8 an hour going out and buying, a pair of $145 shoes. They don't know how to think through that to know that they can't afford that $145 shoes. You're only making $8 an hour. You have young people now that'll go out to a club. They'll pay $10. I don't know how much it costs to get in a club. I haven't been in a club in years. They'll pay $10 to go to a club, right? They're making $7.50 an hour. They don't even understand that $10 to get into the club, then whatever it is that they're paying to drink or eat when they're in the club, and then that fancy outfit they had to go put on to go to the club and get their hair did and all that stuff, they just spent their whole paycheck, and they can't even understand why they're broke, because they're not thinking through things. People are buying and purchasing stuff and not thinking through whether they even like it or not. They're doing it because it's what's faddish, because this is what they're seeing on TV that you're supposed to do. People are letting their kids do things and become things and partake in things that they know that is wrong, but they're not thinking through processes of stuff of why would somebody be putting that in front of you. Is that right or is that not right? You got kids that are dying, you guys, fighting for their lives because they're smoking these electronic cigarettes. But what parent would allow their kid to smoke an electronic cigarette? No one has to tell you that smoking cigarettes is wrong. You know that because you use your brain. They can come out and tell you, oh, these cigarettes are going to be better for you. You're not going to have these problems. But if you actually listen to what the product is, you know that you're really not going to be better. It's still going to do the same kind of damage, but now we find out it's going to be worse. But I didn't have to take that to be able to know that. I knew that when the product came out and I heard the information and read the information on it, I said it's not any better. It's still going to cause the same kind of problems. But a lot of people are doing those things and partaking in those things because they're not able to think through things. And if your child has went out and started doing that without your permission, a lot of that is because they're not able to think through situations to get themselves out of trouble and to stay away from trouble. So we need to teach our children critical thinking so that they can think wisely and make wise decisions in life. Hope something in there was helpful for you. Until next time.